On TV, on radio, and on your smartphone. This is Talk TV.
Good evening, I'm Piers Morgan. Uncensored this hour. The Navy SEAL who killed Osama bin Laden, royal expert and magazine royalty Tina Brown, and TV's baddest dad, Brian Cox. But first, comedian Dave Chappelle was attacked on stage while performing a Netflix gig in Los Angeles. The streaming giant's biggest comedy star has long faced protests and even sinister threats of violence for dissecting issues like race and gender politics in America. So with comedians now fearing for their safety for going about the business of trying to make people laugh, was the attack on Chappelle also an attack on free speech? He's comedian and wrestling superstar Tyrus and the British stand-up Dame Baptiste. I asked how this incident compares to Will Smith slapping Chris Rock at the Oscars.
When Will Smith did that, he, being who he is and the position he is, he just said, hey, this is what you do when you don't like what they say, because he had no consequences. He wasn't dragged off by security and thrown out and embarrassed and humiliated. He literally went back to his seat and then talked more trash. So when people see this, especially the lower end of our society, and they're thinking, how can I... That guy didn't go to the comedy show and he wasn't sitting there going, and then he heard a joke that he was so offended that he jumped up, and he went there premeditated. He had a weapon. He was there because two things were going to happen. One, he was going to get a lot of attention. He was going to be on the news, and he'd be able to say whatever political thing he wanted to say and how comedy is this and that. The only thing he didn't count on was that Dave Chappelle works out. He's shredded like a Julian salad. He hangs out with Busta Rhymes, who's like a biscuit away from 300 pounds, and he's got a really serious security team. As Snoop's former bodyguard, I had a very similar situation, and I left the guy just as twisted. So he got some real-life consequences, so hopefully all the woke that see that we can make a statement by going after comedians, they'll think twice, because this is what happens in the real world.
Well, you know what, Tyrus? I'll say, Tyrus,
Yeah.
you've actually made me think twice on what you just said. You've made me rethink what I think about the Will Smith-Chris Rock thing, because I was a little bit, not defensive of Will Smith, but I was understanding. But in terms of the precedent that it's set, I think you make a very good point. That guy may well have been inspired by what's happened at the Oscars, and that may well now be parroted across America and other countries. We bring in Dame Baptiste. Dame, you're a stand-up comedian. You perform in front of audience all the time. They can get raucous, they can get noisy, you can get hecklers. But when you see somebody of Dave Chappelle's stature, I think he's one of the great comedians in the world today, if not of all time. When you see someone like him attacked by somebody with a replica gun which had a spring-up knife in it, and literally could have killed him, what made you think about that? What's your view about that? What happens now next time you go out in front of an audience?
I mean, whatever happens to me will remain exactly the same, Piers. If someone crosses the boundary of approaching me on stage, it no longer is the paradigm of comedian and audience. What you're dealing with then is a potential belligerent or assailant, and me as a civilian having the right to defend myself. With that being said, I am not somebody who is adverse to the plight of the trans community or the transgender community, but at the same time, I think anyone who has taken the time to build context of Dave Chappelle and his narrative would understand that he has made it a point of principle, artistic principle, to hold America and the Western civilization under a microscope and examine various groups. And I think he does that from the position of fool. So it's very worrying that people will resort to violence, especially with deadly weapons. And again, I am pained to, but I do agree with yourself and Tyrus in terms of the fact that this may be a precedent that's been set by Will Smith's actions, which has encouraged people to believe that they are able to use physical force in order to quell a narrative they don't necessarily agree with. And I think it's probably the most extreme and potentially most lethal form of censorship that exists in our society. With that being said, I want to thank you for unblocking me on Twitter as well. And, it
was quite funny, actually. I'm doing a show called Piers Morgan Uncensored, and Dane, before he came on, pointed out to our producers I blocked him on Twitter. So I had to uncancel you, Dane, which is what we do on this show.
Exactly.
You are formally uncancelled. We're back in Twitter love with each other. Let me bring Tyrus back in. Tyrus, we've seen some weird stuff going on. We saw the Chris Rock thing. We saw this thing last night with Dave Chappelle. We also saw, random strangers on planes baiting Mike Tyson. I think it happened again yesterday with somebody else with Mike Tyson. What is going on here? Are people just going slightly mad because of a pandemic, because of other issues? Do you feel there's a rising tension amongst the populace, or am I overthinking it?
No, you're not overthinking it, but you're giving them too much credit. This comes down to fame-seeking, attention-seeking, and whatever message they want to get out. It's just, here's the thing. With Dave Chappelle, real quickly, groups are coming out saying this is what happens when you use words that hurt people's feelings. So it was Dave Chappelle's fault. It was like basically saying, how were you dressed when he attacked you? Instead of owning the fact that there is never a good reason. If someone says something you don't like, you never get it. There's no ever reason to put hands on him. You just don't watch him anymore. The thing with Mike Tyson is the guy who got into it with Mike Tyson got spread. He goes all over his Twitter is up. He's getting all kinds of attention. So, they're targeting celebrities, especially it looks like they're targeting black celebrities, like, brothers, we getting targeted because anything we do to them, they end up being the victim.
Yeah, but Dane, in terms of comedy itself, is there a line? People say to me, well, Piers Morgan Uncensored, is there a line you won't cross on the show? Are there things guests could say? Are there jokes they could tell which would cross a line? I think there is a line. I don't think anything is acceptable. You incite death threats against people, if you incite violence against people, I think that crosses a line. But as a comedian, you referenced there Dave Chappelle's material about the trans community. I don't think he does it from a place of hate at all. I don't think he's transphobic. I think he's talking about issues that have been raised very publicly in the trans world, which I think should be openly debated. But, are you suggesting that in some way when you say that there are things that are off limits in terms of topics rather than direct threats of violence?
I don't think there should be any topic that's necessarily off the table for a comedian, but I think it's important for people to remember that as a comedian, you are taking the position, arguably, of a fool, so to speak, and so... and as an artist, your work is always dynamic. So even if Dave Chappelle does make a statement that does appear to be incendiary towards a particular minority group, that doesn't necessarily mean that he's condemning them or he's ratifying any violence or marginalization of said group. He is always open to be able to go back and revisit his material with the more knowledge and information he receives from that particular group. But I think the problem is that we are now living in a time where the bipartisan political spectrum has failed us, and we're not able to find ideologues and politicians that we can necessarily trust. There's a lot of duplicity amongst that, so people look to other people with platforms, and unfortunately, as a result of which, because comedians and comedy as an art form does tend to feature as an honest form of politics, it means that we are now being singled out as focal points for anybody's kind of angst or issues.
Taurus, I don't want to let you go without giving you a plug for your book, which is roaring up the charts on Amazon. I saw your tweet today. Congratulations on that. Very quickly, what's the title of the book and what's it about?
The name of the book is Just Tyrus, a memoir, and it's just basically about all the jobs I've had and been fired from. So it's a lot of stories of how you take failure and you turn it into something else, and how you transition from one to the other. And, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, it's storming the charts. I can't wait to read it. Great to have you on the show. Thank you very much, Taurus.
Always a pleasure, sir. It's an honor, and I'm glad you're back.
The honor's mine. And thank you also to Dave Baptiste.
Thank you for having me, Piers.
War heroes don't get much bigger than this. In the week that marks the anniversary of Osama bin Laden's death, the man who killed him, former Navy SEAL Rob O'Neill. And as the grim war in Ukraine rages on, I asked him what he would do about the butcher Vladimir Putin.
I don't think we could take out Vladimir Putin the way we did Osama bin Laden, simply because he's the head of state. He's got a lot more defense. He's got lines of security around him. You're not just going to be able to sneak in there under the radar like we did with bin Laden. And I don't think it'd be worth our interest in potentially starting a nuclear war. The way to get to him is to go behind the scenes, and I know we have men and women in the intelligence service that are looking for a coup, looking for some sort of assassination attempt, but unfortunately, we here in the United States have sitting senators who like to get on television and say that out loud because they're not really worried about getting rid of Putin. They're worried about ratings for themselves so that they can get campaign funding, so they can get what every politician wants, another term, and that's it. But I think the way is through a coup, and I think they have something like that planned coming up, hopefully.
When you look at what's happening in Ukraine, as a military man, I mean, you must be sick, aren't you, of seeing these scenes play out on real time on social media now, which we didn't obviously have in previous wars, where you see maternity hospitals being bombed, you see Holocaust survivors being shot dead in their homes, you see refugees being targeted as they try and flee with their children. What do you think of it, Rob, and how frustrated does it make you?
Well, it's very, very frustrating because a lot of these people that are taking other countries to war aren't doing it for the reasons they say. Vladimir Putin said there was a Nazi uprising in Kiev, and that's what he's telling his soldiers who are massing on the border, or they're doing, different kinds of drills. And the Ukrainian people are defending themselves, but like you said, they're being executed. Mass graves. There's death squads going in there by the direction of Vladimir Putin with no uniforms, just so they can kill people and take the spoils of war. Even right now, May 9th is coming up, it's called Victory Day, where the Russians, beat the Nazis. And they're going to celebrate it in Mariupol. They're having civilians clean up a theater site where they've killed hundreds of people in a bombing, the place where it said children inside. They had white flags outside. They're making civilians clear that out now, right, just for food, so they can eat, so that the Russians can have a parade there and show the Russian people back home, look, we're winning, look over here.
Yeah, I mean, it makes your stomach churn. The difference between him and Hitler is one thing. Putin is armed with a nuclear arsenal of 6,000 nuclear weapons, and he's now started to use that in a very threatening way to prevent people getting engaged with him, which is not supposed to be the point of a nuclear deterrent. How do you deal with this new phenomenon of a nuclear power basically using the nukes as a protective shield to commit genocide?
I mean, this is just proof that Vladimir Putin has always been playing the long game for Mother Russia. There was an agreement in the early 90s between the UK, the Americans, and the Russians that Ukraine gives up their nuclear arsenal that's a deterrent in favor that the Russians won't ever invade. And he eventually invaded. And now he's got the will, plus he's also got the terminal illness where he wants to go down as a great premier, one of the best of all time. And he's got the finger, a guy with dementia, possibly two guys with dementia, on their fingers on the trigger, and they're just throwing around the word nuclear like it doesn't matter. And to someone that old that wants to be, go down in history, what's he got to lose? I mean, maybe he'll do it. It's very, very scary. What we need to do is not just meet force with force. We need to meet that deterrent with the potential of greater force. And hopefully people close enough to Vladimir Putin. I mean, maybe soon when he goes, under anesthesia for surgery, maybe he just doesn't wake up. Who knows what they're going to do, because Russians are smart. I hope they're smart enough not to want to destroy the free world, because you got to figure a missile from Russia can be in the UK in under 200 seconds. I don't have the exact math, but it's fast.
I mean, that is a terrifying fact, isn't it? And, he is saber-rattling. And the question is he mad? Is he bad? Is he both? And how, is he sick? We just don't know enough about Putin's state of mind to know whether actually it's in his calculus to potentially launch a missile. We just don't know, do we?
I think it's all three of those things. With, and his back's against the wall. He was supposed to roll through there, have Kiev, and then put a puppet government up, like he did in Belarus when someone won a corrupt election. If you can imagine that happening in the world, and that's what was going to happen. They're going to keep the Ukrainian flag up. Russia has that. China rolls into Taiwan. It's all part of the big plan. But fortunately, and I don't think that Zelensky's the greatest hero that he portrays, but he was able to raise morale, and it's the Ukrainian people that are fighting back, obviously with some backing from us, but they're really showing what it's like to love your country and to fight for it. That's the only good thing, if you can call it a good thing, of this whole conflict or war, is that the Ukrainians are showing that you can stand up against tyranny and you can defeat it, which I think they're doing.
Well, he's certainly raising their morale, and the people are fighting for him, and I think they see him as an inspiring leader. And, I remember, at the anniversary of what you did all those years ago, I remember being in New York. I flew into New York that night, and I remember just the unbelievable excitement that was in the air when news broke that Osama bin Laden was dead. And then I had the great honour of meeting you and shaking the hand of the man that did it. And I just want to thank you again for what you did, because that was an extraordinary thing, and we're all massively in your debt. So great to talk to you, Rob.
Always, anytime, Piers. Great to talk to you.
Great to talk to you. Uncensored next, the wife of tennis legend Boris Becker speaks out for the first time after his shock prison sentence. tennis legend Boris Becker is beginning 2.5 years behind bars for hiding millions in assets to avoid paying off debts. I spoke to his wife Lily in her first exclusive interview since his shock sentence. Stick around for the end. She revealed a little bit more than I was expecting.
It's hard because it's public, it's everywhere. It's hard because everybody has an opinion about it, rightly so. And I'm here to actually show everybody that he has a bunch of really strong women behind him, and here to not be for him, but to protect him.
It was well known that a while ago you and his girlfriend Lillian had a bit of a spat. You went on social media and had a bit of a pop at her. But has what's happened brought you guys close in a weird way, that you both see a guy that you've had great love for go to prison?
Absolutely. And up until today, I'm super embarrassed, and we're going to meet up pretty soon, and I would love to apologize to her face-to-face.
To Lillian?
To Lillian, absolutely. Yeah. She was the first one to reach out to me. Asked how I was doing, how I was holding up, how's Amadeus? I said, absolutely. I said, thank you. We're doing okay, A-okay, as good as it can be. Then I called Barbara, the ex-wife, and it was just a non-spoken thing. It was like, right, here we are, let's get together and let's protect this guy. The humiliation was already enough for him to have it done on air for 3 weeks long, sitting there, not being able to well, he can't defend himself, but if you know Boris, you know that he has pride. And to then be sentenced and everybody immediately having something to say, yeah, he deserved it. We don't know what he deserves. But the humiliation, that is already...
When you heard he was getting a 2.5-year prison sentence, that's a long time. And this is the man who's the father of your son, Amadeus, who's 12 now. What was that moment like for you when you heard the sentence? I
completely broke down. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, because I was convinced up until the judge made her verdict that he was going to get off a little bit lighter than, 2.5 years. And I had to keep it together. And I did not know how I did it. I kind of did it. Thank God my son, I was prepared. I kept him out of school. He was upstairs.
Does he know what's happened to Boris?
He does now. He did. I had to break it down to him.
His kids will tell him at school. He'll see it on the internet, right?
But that was the thing. I had kept, we as a family, including Boris, Lillian, and the kids, we had purposely not allowed him or spoke about the trial or anything. And then I didn't have no chance but to break my heart, or actually his heart, last Sunday. And I don't wish this upon anybody. It was the hardest thing I had to do with a 12-year-old.
To tell him his dad was going to prison.
He did. He just couldn't grasp it, still can't, and it breaks my heart. But it just made me into Tiger Mama, because I feel now that I think we've all been through enough as a family. There is a mother involved. I'm not here. I'm not asking for sympathy. I don't want it, nor would Boris want that. I'm asking for empathy. I'm asking for everybody that had an opinion or wanted to write about him to please stop.
You saw Boris just before he got sentenced.
Yeah.
What was his state of mind about this? Does he feel that the judge did criticise him for not showing any humility or accepting he'd done much wrong? Do you think as the time came nearer that Boris understood what he'd done and it was wrong?
I think Boris always knew what was going to happen. He knew from the beginning this is going to be a tough one. It's going to be worldwide. But what do you do in a situation like that? You just go and be mentally prepared. And thank God his mental health is so strong. And he was probably prepared for these moments, because life with Boris is never boring. It's headline after headline. And what has happened to him now, I think, please allow him to heal behind closed doors and let him...
Do you know how he's getting on in prison? It must be a very different experience for him.
Liliana has told me that he's okay. He's fine. It's not a 5-star hotel, is it? Like, he can be as good as he can be.
And what about his sense of pride you talked about earlier? Does he feel a sense of shame about what's happened?
Wouldn't you? I think everybody is. And that's why I feel that, he's embarrassed, he's humiliated, he knows that everybody always had. So how is he going to pick himself up from this? And the best way he can is trying to stay mentally strong, focused, because it's just an obstacle in the road.
It takes a pretty extraordinary guy
He is extraordinary.
Well, I was going to say, but I've known Boris socially, and I've always liked him.
Yeah.
He's a great character, and he was a wonderful sportsman. I remember when he won Wimbledon at 17.
He was one of the best.
I mean, amazing. He's also always had a magnetic appeal to women.
Still has.
And here
yes.
you are, a beautiful woman talking as his ex-wife, very lovingly about him. Lillian, his girlfriend, very beautiful, talks lovingly about him. His first ex-wife talks lovingly about him. You're all coming together. What is it about Boris Becker that has that draw to women like you?
Well, that's exactly it. It's either you have it or you don't. He has a great charisma. He is a fantastic father, a funny guy, honest, and you either have that swag or not. And he is, if you've met him, you know how charismatic he is. You know when you sit down and he tells a story, you are just glued to him. He's got these blue eyes, and it's just a charm. And this is how he's won lots of fans.
But how will he deal now, Lily, do you think, with the fact he's now a convicted criminal? Because he is a man of pride.
Yes.
And when he comes out of prison, it may be in a year and a half, whenever it may be, he will come out as a convicted criminal. His life will never be the same again.
Says who?
Well, he is a convicted criminal.
He is a convicted criminal. Who says his life will never be the same again? If the people that are standing by him, and which is a lot, I think, don't we all have a comeback kid? He did, yes, I'm going to get... He has, well, he's been committed for a crime.
Well,
he's going to do the time.
For those who don't,
Yeah.
for those who haven't followed it, he was sentenced to 2.5 years for hiding $3.1 million in assets to avoid paying debt. So he got into heavy debt, and he tried to hide money which should have been used to pay it off. That was his crime. Do you think that the sentence was justified?
No, I think it's way too harsh. Absolutely, I think it's way too harsh. Should there be a punishment? Absolutely. I think personally, obviously, I'm biased. I'm part of the Becker family. My last name is Becker, but I think 2.5 it's harsh. It's very harsh. But we knew from the beginning that this judge, she was not going to take no.
Are you hoping to take Amadeus to see his father?
He is dying to see his father. I have just told a 12-year-old that his father is in jail, and the saddest part about it was that I couldn't break it down because these kids are now going on YouTube. They are going on the internet. Internet is cruel, but he also has a loving support system around him, and he's curious. And I've told him we all make mistakes. Your papa didn't listen to the law, and he's on the naughty step, a little bigger one. And
What was the last thing you said to Boris before when he last saw you?
I wrote him, and I said to him, "See you next weekend if you want to see A. All will be good." He gave me this, and I sent him a heart, and that was it.
And you haven't spoken to him since he went inside?
No.
Do you hope to go in yourself?
If he would want to, yes. I mean, absolutely. With my son, 100%. I think I need to be holding my hand with him. And of course I want to see him. I'm dying to see him.
You're still his wife. You're not divorced at all.
I'm very much still his wife. A strange wife as that may be, but we're still very much married. We have been since we went our separate ways. And
do you want to get divorced?
Why did you ask me that? I think it's...
Boris has said you're the most intense lover he's ever had in his life.
It was from the beginning intense. It was a complete true love story. There is no ifs or buts about it. And everybody that knows us knows this.
You don't want to divorce him, do you?
Why did you do this? It's not that I don't want to get a divorce. I think we should handle our business at the right time. This is not the right time. This is everybody's involved. We will do it how...
But right now, you're still his wife and you still love him.
Of course I do. Of course I do. We all love him. Lillian loves him, Barbara loves him, Amadeus loves him. But right now we need to be a unity. And I think this let's get divorced or not, that's definitely on the back burner. Let's get him sorted. Let's get him right. Then we all get to, as we do right now. And then we do it when it's the right time.
OK. Well, I wanted to keep you here to set the record straight. So there we have it. A world exclusive. Boris Becker is not divorced from Lily. They're still married. He's talked about your crazy love. I can see a bit of crazy love coming back from you to him. So who the hell knows how this all washes up? But it's fascinating. And thank you for staying and clarifying that.
Yeah, of course. I think that's important too.
Uncensored next is Kim Kardashian destroying Marilyn Monroe's legacy by desecrating her dress. Two of the world's most famous Marilyn impersonators will debate.
This is Talk TV.
Fans of Marilyn Monroe have slammed Kim Kardashian for wearing her iconic Happy Birthday, Mr. President dress at the Met Gala red carpet in New York. So fashion or farce? Who better to debate this than two-star Marilyn impersonators? Heather Chaney performs in Las Vegas, Susie Kennedy here in the UK. And trust me, hang around for the song at the end.
Marilyn's lost everything. She lost her childhood, she lost her loves, she lost her life. That one dress, that iconic moment, was so Marilyn, and it's been now stolen. And I remember Kim Kardashian's dad was part of the O.J. Simpson team that said, if the glove don't fit, you must acquit. Well, Kim, the dress didn't fit, so quit. Don't ruin a moment.
I mean, look, Heather, I've got to say, I'm with Susie on this, because when I see her trying to bust her way into that dress, she clearly doesn't fit it. And that's despite, we're going to play a clip now of Kim Kardashian talking about trying on the dress and realising it doesn't even fit. Let's listen to this.
So they came with like armed guards and gloves, and I tried it on and it didn't fit me. And so I looked at them and I said, give me like 3 weeks. And I had to lose 16 pounds down today to be able to fit this, but it was such a challenge. It was like a roll.
Right.
I was determined. Yeah, I was determined to fit it.
Sorry, what does she mean a role? She's not an actress. Marilyn Monroe was a goddess of the silver screen. Kim Kardashian is a reality TV star. A role. What's she talking about, Heather?
Listen, in real, Marilyn was actually sewn into the dress, so I find it not surprising that they had to do it for Kim K. And I myself, I have no idea how she got the back end of her in the dress.
Well, she didn't. She didn't, Heather. That's the point. She
well,
couldn't
yeah,
get her back end
technically
into the
she
dress.
didn't.
And so they left it open and then covered it up, apparently.
Yes, apparently. Yeah. I haven't seen all the footage as of yet.
It's very unsightly and, in my view, very demeaning to the legacy and memory of Marilyn Monroe. That's my point.
Exactly.
But I come from a place of, like, working in a theme park. I've seen people roaming through over and over with images of Marilyn that are, frankly, far worse, with, like, the skull face. I mean, the images of Marilyn have been tarnished for years. And this is a little different because it's bigger in the spotlight, because it's the infamous Happy Birthday dress. But somebody, tarnishing the image of marriage, this is not a first for that.
I don't really agree. But, Susie, final word to you, quickly.
It's just ridiculous. And the sad thing is now is that Marilyn Monroe had a moment in history, and Kim Kardashian has clung on to that. And you're right, Piers, she's not an actress, she's a reality star, and I think it's a very sad day for that dress. It's tarnished now, and it's been hijacked like a Mark Chapman hijacked John Lennon, and I'm here in Liverpool, and that dress was Marilyn's, and it'll never be the Marilyn Kim Kardashian dress, and that's a really sad day. For what? Kim had her own thing. Do your own thing. I'm an impersonator. I don't have to do my own thing. That's what I do. Kim was different. She could have made her moment. Instead, she had to steal it.
I agree with you. Can I leave,
sad.
though, with the pair of you just saying happy birthday, Mr. President, to me in Marilyn voice?
Happy birthday, Mr. Morgan. Happy birthday to you.
Heather?
Oh, you want me to go?
Yeah, go on.
Happy birthday. He's loving this today. To you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, little Piers. Happy birthday to you.
Fabulous. Now, that is the spirit of Marilyn Monroe. Thank you, ladies. Now, who better to unearth the secrets of the most private family on earth than one of the most connected women in the world? She's edited Tatler, Vanity Fair and The New Yorker, author of the new explosive book, The Palace Papers, Inside the House of Windsor. It's tell-all titan, Tina Brown.
Meghan simply didn't understand how different the monarchy is from the inside to what it looks like from the outside. From the outside, it's palaces, it's global tours, it's being, adored, it's being one of the most famous people in the world. From inside, it can be really dull. It is grunt work.
But she gave it 18 months. I mean, I just can't buy this. I think she's genuinely planned the whole thing. I think she thought, I'll come in, hoover up this prince, yank him back to California and become the new Angelina and Brad Pitt.
I think she thought, honestly, that she could play a different kind of princess, that she could actually... I don't think she went in there thinking, I'm going to snatch Harry out of there. I think she thought she was going to be able to be this global humanitarian princess. The problem was that Harry was actually, by that time, 6th in line to the throne. He's not, although he's a global superstar, inside the palace hierarchy, he's not really such a big deal.
I mean, I don't really have a... Look, if they want to go and live in California and lead the life they want to lead, everyone should be allowed to lead the lives they want to lead. No one can force them to do what they do. My central problem with the situation now is that they want to keep their royal titles, which make them all the money from Netflix, Spotify and so on. They don't want to do any of the duty that comes with the titles, and they want to go on national television quite regularly and trash the institution of the monarchy and the royal family as a bunch of callous racists, which causes incalculable damage. I mean, you see it in the Commonwealth now when they're going on these tours and getting some adverse reaction. A lot of that comes back to Meghan Markle, the first non-white member of the royal family, calling them a bunch of racists, not saying who it was.
Well, I mean, I think that actually that Harry is on a pretty good mojo right now. I mean... because he started in...
Do you think so? He looks
So.
Really lost to me.
Well, I did think that, actually, for a while, but I do think just recently he's got his mojo back. I think that Invictus, that he invented, was a brilliant success.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
I mean, this is his legacy. And actually, for Harry, that should be his complete focus and brand.
But he doesn't talk to his brother, William, right? I mean, that's pretty clear in the book as well.
I think it's a very unhappy situation between him and his brother, and actually I think it's weakening for William as much as it is for Harry not to have that fraternal bond.
Well, they were a great team. That's the
They were a great
I mean,
team.
it feels like we've lost this guy. He doesn't look that happy to me. Someone who else is not remotely happy will be Prince Andrew, and many will say, well, he shouldn't be. The Queen, I thought it was remarkable at Philip's memorial service that she wanted Andrew to walk down the aisle with him. It was a really big statement by the Queen. I mean, I thought misguided, but actually other people thought it's her son and it was his father he was honouring. What did you think?
Well, I mean, what is so fascinating about the Queen is where she's always been able to compartmentalise sovereign, HRH, you know, the Queen, from mother, grandmother and a private world. And actually, one of the things that I learnt during this piece is that in the family, they all know who they're going to see. Are they going to see the sovereign because they're going to talk about matters of import to them?
Or is it mummy and granny?
Or is it mummy and granny? Now, like any big CEO, like Logan Roy's family,
yeah.
I mean, they like to snip through sometimes.
I mean, he thinks he's dysfunctional, Logan Roy. Wait till you see the royals, right?
Exactly. But actually, it all works just the same as Succession. I mean,
there's some fantastic descriptions of public figures in your book, Tina. Who's this? Who you describe as an editorial swashbuckler, an 800-pound gorilla of British TV, and the young Lord of Misrule who revelled in transgression. Any clues?
Stand up, Piers Morgan. It is you. It is you. I mean, listen, you were the great sort of prince of the 90s, Piers. I mean,
less of the word, less of the 90s.
Yeah, I mean, the prince of the 90s. I mean, you were unbelievable. And actually, I still believe that your diaries are absolutely amazing classic, and I want to see them, you know, on ice and singing and dancing.
A movie, maybe?
You know, I think they are a portrait of an age, the 90s, which are unbelievable. One of the most amazing stories you tell in that diary is how when Princess Diana brought Prince William... No, you went to lunch at Kensington Palace.
Yeah, with William and Diana,
and Prince... I mean, think about it. Can you...
2 hours of everything.
2 hours.
And what struck me, William was 13 and she told him everything.
Everything.
Absolutely everything.
Well, that was what's so incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine today, I hope it might happen, but I suspect it won't, that the Duchess of Cambridge would invite you and you, Piers, over to lunch with her and Prince Georgie.
If you're watching, Your Royal Highness, I am available.
I think
they actually send their kids to one of the schools that my kids went to, their sister school.
But it was an Ask Me Anything lunch, right?
No.
And you asked her anything you wanted.
You spend a lot of time in America, and as do I. Prince Charles is trying to woo his American fans. This happened to yesterday, in fact. He went to a school in South London and was shown how to throw an American football. So before we show it, look at Tom Brady throwing one.
That's cool.
Drop out and play zone sometimes. Pocket protected. That leaves
now let's cut to Prince Charles throwing his. Actually, not bad. I mean, I just thought that was good.
Not bad.
Given his age and lack of experience, Tina,
But
look.
you know who could have done that brilliantly is Prince Harry, because I was actually told, which is very interesting, that Prince Harry, the reason that he was such a great soldier, such a great shot, he has perfect hand-eye coordination.
Really?
Yeah, he is brilliant at throwing balls out.
Well, let's end on a happy note with Prince Harry. Tina Brown, The Palace Papers, it's a riveting read. Honestly, I love the Diana book. I love this one. I'm going to read it thoroughly, gorge on it. Not least about myself. Good luck with the book and lovely to see you.
Thank you, Piers. Good luck with this show.
Thank you. Great to have you here in the studio. Uncensored next, the most ruthless boss on TV, and he doesn't mince his words in real life either. Brian Cox coming up. I've had my fair share of audiences with terrifyingly powerful media moguls, but I have to confess, the knowledge I've been sitting across the desk from Logan Roy set even my pulse racing. Here's my boardroom encounter with the Emmy Award-winning star of HBO's Succession, Brian Cox. Brian, great to see you.
Nice to see you, Piers.
Start with Succession. I've seen that you said that you kind of thought it was going to be a big hit because you could feel the quality of the scripts. But when it went as big as it did, have you ever experienced anything quite like that in your career?
The debut of the last season at the Royal Festival Hall, I walked on, being the eldest member, I walk on first, and the audience reaction was astonishing. And I actually thought somebody had come on behind me, like some kind of, like some Iggy Pop or somebody like that, or Mick Jagger had walked on behind me, and I turned around, there was nobody there, and I thought, This is weird.
Do you get a lot of people coming up simply wanting you to swear at them?
Absolutely, all the time. All the time. And of course, it's the easiest thing to say.
And do you do it?
Of course. Of course. I mean, there's nothing, I love it.
The great thing, I think, about you, Brian, is you said recently you've reached the age of mid-70s and you don't care anymore about saying what you think about things. And you talked about how when you were younger, you would temper your words, your opinions and stuff, but now you don't care. We're in a very odd place in society, I think, with this kind of cancel culture mentality. People walking around on eggshells, terrified of expressing opinions because they're getting fired, they're losing jobs, they're getting shamed and abused and vilified and so on. What do you make of where society is going and what do we do about it?
Well, it's a kind of modern-day McCarthyism, really. It's a kind of raid on people's sensibilities in order to kind of reduce them and make them, I don't know, there's so much hypocrisy involved with the whole thing. I mean, I find the whole thing completely hypocritical. Who is the one, there's a thing, I mean, I'm not religious, but there is a thing in the Bible when it says, let him without sin, or he, she without sin, cast the first stone. And there seems to be a lot of casting of stones. And it's like a virus,
Well, Elon Musk calls it a woke virus.
Well, it is a virus.
It feels to me like, what's ironic to me is the people doing it, they claim to be liberals. There's nothing liberal about it.
No, there's nothing.
It's the opposite. It's almost a form of fascism.
It is total fascism.
Yes, it is, isn't
You're
it?
absolutely right. It is total fascism. And people are behaving more and more in the kind of hypocritical... You see, it's hypocrisy again. The hypocritical notion of, I'm being liberal, but actually you are being fascist.
Yes.
And people should just stop it and behave themselves.
I completely agree. And again, the irony is fascism would be the one thing they would all say is the thing they hate most.
Exactly.
And are trying to counter, but in fact they're practicing it themselves.
Exactly, and you're absolutely right on that. I find it appalling, I really do.
When you see what happened to someone like J.K. Rowling, you spoke about, I think one of your kids brought you up to speed on what she'd said, and it was, women menstruate, for example. And you were like, well, I don't understand what all the fuss is about. And yet she was exposed to death threats and all sorts of attempts to cancel her and so on. Again, I just felt that everyone's losing their minds.
Well, I couldn't understand that whole thing at all. I thought, well, this is not an area I am not necessarily permitted to tread upon. But at the same time, I thought it was there was something deeply unjust about it. I just felt that, and and it's happening time and time again. And it's not only the people who are cancelled. It's also the people, like their families, like their children, like their parents, like their, it has such ramifications. Yeah. It creates a sort of like an earthquake situation.
Yeah. On J.K. Rowling, she said, standing up for women's rights. We've got to a strange place again where politicians, Supreme Court nominees, are struggling to say what a woman is. They're too scared to say it's an adult female for fear of the mob.
But we've never examined... You see, the point is we're beginning to examine things that we have never hitherto examined before, particularly the relationship between men and women, and particularly the sexual relationship between men and women, and how that relationship is operated. And it particularly affects young men and women, because they don't know how or what or how or should they express themselves in certain ways. And there's a kind of form of fascism because of knockdown effect where there are kids who just do not know how to approach one another now. And it's,
they're too scared in many cases.
It's too scared, but it's also we're a lot to blame because we haven't attended to it. We haven't actually had schools of study about what those relationships are.
When you talk about study, I mean, I'm incredibly depressed by what's going on at university and colleges and campuses around the world, where you see, the New York Post did a piece about 5 professors who all got cancelled. And it's happening all over the place. So one of them was actually giving a lecture given for 20 years, where he talked about the usage of offensive language. And to illustrate this in the lecture, he said some offensive language. And he got cancelled because people didn't have the brain power to understand what he was doing.
Well, this is part of the virus. And it kind of, I don't know, it just makes people behave in the most idiotic, insensitive, and again, as I say, hypocritical way. You know, they feel one thing, but they practice something quite else.
What's the answer to it?
I don't know. I mean, we're in a very sad place at the moment, really. I think with what's going on both in Ukraine and what's been going on in America, especially in the last 7 years, you know, I mean, it's just been a very bad time. And we're so confused. We just don't know what to believe anymore because all our belief systems are falling apart. And so we're like vigilantes. We have vigilante belief groups, which is what I believe the whole woke culture is.
Yes.
It's a form of vigilante.
It is McCarthyite. I mean, it's exactly the same mentality, rooting people out for perceived indiscretions,
Exactly.
and then basically evaporating them from society.
That's right. And there's no, we go, why is the reason? And of course it's catching. I mean, it's catching. In my business, it catches because suddenly projects. I mean, Bill Murray the other day, and a wonderful, I mean, he made a remark, and it was taken in a way as being offensive. And the picture he was making was stopped the whole thing. Now, Bill went on, I think it was CNN, and explained himself, I thought rather brilliantly, actually, saying, you know, it's about times that have changed. I lived and grew up in one time, and I'm meeting another time, and it's very hard to know how to approach that time. Where do we go? How do we come in? Where is the entryway to make a conversation or just make even a joke with one another?
Well, anyone can take offence at anything, and they can then weaponise the offence
Exactly.
And that's where we've got to. And it's almost impossible to defend yourself because the court of public opinion passes verdict immediately.
That's right. And
let's turn to a happier thing.
Okay.
You went to LAMDA. Well, you attended LAMDA, the great drama school. My middle son went there. He's a young actor. And he remembered you going there and doing a Q&A speech. And he said the most memorable thing that you said was that you should always carry a picture of yourself as a child to remember to maintain childlike enthusiasm.
Exactly.
Do you do that yourself?
I do. I keep it on my phone. Hopefully it'll come up. There it is. And it just came up.
I think we've got it on... That's it. That's on your phone. You're showing me it here. And we've got it on screen. When you see that little boy... Have you lived up to every dream that little boy had?
I have to say pretty much.
Have you?
I have, actually. I mean, I recognise the look. I recognise, and I'm constant. And the look is always different on every day. But today he's going, you know, it's not bad.
When you got to this stage, but did you ever think you'd get to this stage of your life and your career and you would suddenly be in this monster hit? Brilliantly written, with amazing actors all around you.
Well,
and everywhere you're going, they think you're Mick Jagger. I mean, it's pretty amazing, right?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I mean, I think, you know, I've been in this business now. Believe it or not, I have now entered the 7th decade of being in this business.
Amazing.
You know, and
is this the highlight for you?
Yeah.
It has to
no
be.
question. And it's sort of moved in that direction.
Yeah.
I mean, the map of my life has been really, I think, I mean, full of extraordinary tragedy and heartbreak, but really quite remarkable, and made me very respectful.
And how like Logan Roy are you in real life?
Well,
as a father.
As a father, I have certain difficulties. Because I didn't have a father. And I think that's something Logan Roy and I have in common. And the difference between Logan, we are both disappointed with the human experiment.
Yeah.
We are deeply disappointed with it. But I'm an optimist. I believe it will get better. He isn't.
Now, I've heard reports, rumours, that you maybe think of going vegan. Is that right?
Well, I'm thinking of going plant life. I mean, the problem is I like the taste of hamburgers. I actually rather like that.
Well, here's my problem with it.
You know, there are some wonderful plant life hamburgers, and I couldn't tell the difference. My son got me.
Here's my problem. My problem, you talked about hypocrisy earlier. These are Percy pigs. Are you familiar with these?
I don't know.
So they took them vegetarian. They're now taking them vegan. And I've got to do this to show you what we do here. Play this. The world's gone nuts. Here's my problem. They're making these vegan Percy pigs, but they're pigs' heads.
Yeah.
Why would any vegan want to be seen eating a a pig's head whilst claiming to be virtuous about animal cruelty?
Well, let me give you the scenario I would say. So he looks at this, or she looks at this, and she says, pig. Now, a pig is a vegan. A pig is a natural vegan. Pigs, they don't eat meat. They tend
Yeah, but you're still eating the pig's head.
Yes, but that's in respect of the pig.
Brian, I've got to leave it there. What a pleasure to see you.
Thank you.
And thank you for fighting the cancel culture mob. We need more like you out there. That's it from me. Keep it uncensored. Good night.
Biggest issue in Britain right now, undoubtedly, is cost of living. It is energy and all that goes with that, inflation. Look, I don't want the government to do very much, step back from most of our lives. But, there's a point when you say, actually, these guys are getting a grip of it somewhere along the line. You want to believe that the system that is meant to be running things, the Chancellor, the Prime Minister, are going to somehow step in and make life just a little easier for the average person.
This is Talk TV News.
Good evening, I'm Zora Suleiman. The Conservatives are licking their wounds after yesterday's local elections, having so far lost control of 11 councils across the UK, Labour gaining 6 and the Lib Dems 5. The SNP are the biggest party in Scotland, while in Northern Ireland, Sinn Féin have received the most first preference votes. Sir Keir Starmer has said he's confident no rules were broken at an event last April where he was pictured drinking beer with colleagues. Durham police have opened an investigation after they received significant new information. And the Queen's decided only working members of the royal family will join her on the balcony for the Platinum Jubilee, meaning no Harry, Meghan or Prince Andrew. Well, that's all for now. We'll have more after the talk.